Hi everyone. The only thing is I just probably need to make sure these settings are good to go. Yeah. So this is maybe a slightly different map of the old city of Jerusalem. Technically, we're not going to be spending time in the old city today. We've spent quite a lot of time walking around the walls of the old city, within the walls of the old city, exploring every quarter. But this is not what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be walking basically, let's say, not really far from the old city, well, very close to the valley of, well, Hinnom, just by the edge of the Hinnom Valley. And so let's say, just for you to understand where we are, to have the pinpoint what we're going to be doing. So you see the old city. The old city, the way it looks today, it's definitely thanks to the Ottoman Empire. Just reminding you, the old city, the walls that we have nowadays are from the 16th century, 1530s to be exact. Thank you, Suleiman the Magnificent. Yeah, but we're going to be talking about the very different periods of time. Actually, we're going to be traveling back and forth from let's say the 20th century and to about more than two and a half thousand years, ago. There's a lot to talk about. So, but we're gonna be, let's say, let's say, uh, we're gonna be spending the time not really far from the western and the southern edges of the old city. So that's exactly what's, let's say, the area from the Jaffa Gate to the Zion Gate. And named Zion Gate is quite important because actually, well, Zion, the Mount Zion nowadays, it's mountain that's it's the little mount that starts just outside of the walls of the old city, and the Zion Gate is the quickest access to it. And so that's how relatively to Jerusalem Old City we're going to be today. But as I said, we're not going to the old city. We are spending times in the Hinnom Valley, or the so-called the Bible Hill or the Biblical Hill. And you will see that it is actually the hill, and the separation between this Bible Hill and the old city is exactly the Hinnom Valley we today. But we're starting, if you can see here, the red pin on the Google Maps is the St. Andrew Scott Memorial Church. And the Zion Gate, you see, it's really close. But, well, what this map is not giving us is the terrain, that there is the whole valley underneath us. And, well, you need to know how to get from St. Andrews to the Zion Gate. So it's going to take us 3 weeks to do that, 3 Sundays. So, but we're starting with the St. Andrew's Scottish Memorial Church. But just for you to understand, so in this map, you see the old city, you Mount Zion, and just right below it, in the blue color, that's the Hinnom Valley. And also you can see here that there are a lot of blue dots. That's because, well, let me explain. I just said that we're going to be spending 3 weeks in hell on our way to Mount Zion. Well, the Hinnom Valley. In Hebrew, like it's like Gay Ben Hinnom. That's the way this area is referred to in the book of Jeremiah. And Gay Ben Hinnom, you can translate it as the valley, well, as the valley of the son of Hinnom. We have no idea who this Hinnom is. It's never been explained to us. It could have been probably a last name, maybe some generic term, or the name of a family or a community that once at some point, who knows, lived there 3,000 years ago, something like that, 4,000 years ago, no idea, right? So, but that's the area. But this area was used for all sorts of, horrible practices. There used to live people, pagans that had a lot of rituals and sacrifice, and in that valley they buried their children. So they burned them as a sacrifice to their gods. So that's why this area was considered hell later on in the translations of the Bible, in the translations of especially the New Testament. The name basically kind of was corrupted and changed from Hinnom into Hyena, and well, that's basically referred as hell in the translations of the New Testament. So that's why it is the hell. We're going to be talking more about it in the coming tours because, again, as I said, we're going to be spending quite a lot of time in hell. But today we are just touching the surface, put it this way. This is the photo I took in 2022 when I started taking my course to become a licensed tour guide in Israel. And this is this Scottish, St. Andrew's Scottish church. It's, as you can see here, it's standing on the bedrock. And this is really, a moment when I was just sitting on the bedrock right below the church, and I was trying, to take in what our guide was just telling us. And I really tried to wrap my mind around this fact that I was sitting by the church that was built in the in 1930s to commemorate the soldiers, the Scottish soldiers, and later on the British soldiers who fell in the First World War. But I was sitting on a bedrock that just had some incredible archaeology that dates back to, well, more than 2,500 years. And I couldn't really just take it in. And I'm still not over it. But yes, this is what happens in Jerusalem all the time and basically across the Holy Land. So let's start with the church, right? Let's start with the church. And the video, this particular video was filmed last summer, as I was staying in Israel for 6 or 7 weeks, I don't remember. And I filmed it together with a friend. So as I said, the church is located on elevation. It's called like a Bible Hill. And this is the photo I found on, I think on Wikipedia even. So for you to understand that, yes, so Jerusalem is all about the mountains. It's all about the hills. So it's just one of them. This Bible Hill, I think it's best if I just switch off the sound. So this Bible Hill is a very important strategic location. This hill has been used continuously for the lookouts because it overlooks the old city, it overlooks the Hinnom Valley, and it's given just a good view of the entire area. So from this Bible Hill, one could see anyone approaching the old city. So now that you've seen us going uphill just a little bit, it's not really very steep. You could tell this is the hill because when you stand here, you just don't really realize that you are standing on the hill until you see the views, and we'll see the views. So this church was started building it in the very end of the 1920s. And they finished by 1930, St. Andrew Scots Memorial Church. Well, this photo is not really the best quality, but you just get the idea. And you see that when it was built, it was almost the barren land, with just a little building standing not far from it. And this building to the left is still there. We'll talk about it as well, at some point during the tour. And so the architect in charge of the project was this nicely looking gentleman, Clifford Holliday, who this is the Mandate period, right? So once General Allenby entered Jerusalem, well, taking over the Ottomans and them out and basically putting the Ottoman Empire to an end, which also eventually retroactively gave the mandate to Great Britain over Palestine, which is, just to remind you, right, because we have some new viewers today joining us and this recording will be watched. Palestine is not the name of the state. It's the name of a region, right? So this region was given this name by the Romans in the 2nd century Common Era when they destroyed, first of all, they had destroyed the temple in 70 AD. and they destroyed Jerusalem to completely erase the name of Judea from history because of the constant revolts of the Jews against the Romans who fought for their Jewish identity, right? And so the Romans, Emperor Hadrian mainly named the new region and the newly built city Aelia Capitolina, and the region was called Syria Palestina, referring to the peoples, pagan peoples coming from the area of the Mediterranean, right, that once lived on the territory of the Holy Land and 2,000 years ago. Well, a thousand and a half years ago, let's put it this way. I mean, at that time, right? So we just starting from the time of the Romans, right? So, and during the let's say the Ottoman Empire, the land was called the Ottoman Palace, and just the region. And then when the British came, it became the Mandate Palace, right? So British Mandate. There's just and Clifford Holliday is one of those architects who basically helped shape the face and the archaeology of the mandatory Palestine. For example, well, this building, it's actually the Barclays Bank, but oh, thank you so much. We have a bot on the tour, and we're going to get rid of this bot because it's really getting on my nerves. Thank you so much. I'm not even seeing anything, but thank you so much, Sharon, for flagging this to me. Goodbye, bot. And hi, everyone who joined. I see some new names. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for hopping on the tour. So those of you who have been to Jerusalem, I'm sure you remember this building. This is just very close to the Jaffa Gate, the Russian compound, and this building for many years was used, well, as a bank, and also the Barclay Bank. That's the Barclay building, but also a big part of the building was used as a city hall of Jerusalem until a bigger building was constructed in the Safra Square. So this was also constructed by Clifford Holliday, as well as many other buildings, including the new building of the Eye Hospital. There actually were two eye hospitals. The first one was constructed way before the Mandate. That's 1880s. That's the time when the Ottomans encouraged and allowed the purchase of land and the immigration to the Holy Land by Christian, by Jews, by Muslims. So this was the time when a lot of Christian organizations started land, building churches, schools, hospitals for pilgrims and the local population. And this is when the ophthalmic hospital was opened. St. John's Ophthalmic Hospital opened, thanks to the commission of Queen Victoria. So the first hospital was built on the Bethlehem Road, which is also very close to the Hinnom Valley. And Clifford Holliday was in charge of the construction of the second hospital, which you can see is very close to St. Andrew's Church as well. So Clifford Holliday basically helped shape the concept of the modern, let's say the 20th century Jerusalem. Let's say the first years of the Mandate period, which I would say defined the several decades even. So the building, the way, well, this is the good example of this international style, but it's kind of with the elements of Art Nouveau, with elements of Art Deco, because, well, Clifford Holliday was coming from Europe, right? So from the UK, and obviously he wanted to, well, and it was the Mandate period, so they were bringing, some European vibe with them, but also wanted to embrace local architecture, local features. So that's why it's called the international style. And what's given us this local vibe is the Armenian tiles that we have. Obviously, the Jerusalem stone as facing the facade, and some arches and columns that you are going to see in abundance in many buildings in the area. While the Armenian tiles, I think we've had a tour with you. I took you to the Armenian Quarter and we visited the tile workshop of the Armenian family. So the Armenian family dealt a lot and contributed greatly to the way the old city and in general Jerusalem looks today. And also the Armenians were in charge of the restoration of the Dome of the Rock, which is all covered in beautiful blue tiles. So this is one of the integral parts and the special features of Jerusalem. So this beautiful Armenian tiles. And obviously, we have them in the church. It's absolutely a must. And it was exactly the mandate. It was exactly the British that asked the Armenians to step in and help them rebuild, restore, and just brush up the looks of Jerusalem. So in the whole of the well, it's important to say that there is a church, and also as it was very common with the churches, the hostels, the hotels would be built because it was all meant for pilgrimage, right? Christian pilgrimage in this case. And in the whole of the guest house, we have the portrait of General Allenby, of course, who triumphantly entered Jerusalem in 1917 after having defeated the Ottomans in the Battle of Beersheba and several other locations. And this is the famous episode when he on foot enters the Jaffa Gate, which is very symbolic because, as you probably remember, just about less than 20 years before that, 1899, the Kaiser William II of Germany entered Jerusalem, but he didn't want to get off his horse. And the Ottomans destroyed almost full, well, 300-year-old walls of the Jaffa Gate so that Kaiser could just enter and his entourage could enter the old city without having to get off the horse, which was okay. I'm not the one to really judge here, right? But Allenby was doing it with respect to the Holy Land, to the old city, and so he did it on foot. And everyone just loved it. So this is a really, really symbolic moment. So, and obviously, well, Allenby entering the very important place which we have toured thoroughly. It's now the museum called Tower of David, but this is the old citadel, which was one of the strongholds of the Ottomans, impregnable fortress. Well, that's actually, was used by all the other civilizations and peoples that had this land under their control. But from the lobby of the guest house, we are going, I'm zooming things in a little bit and speeding things up, we're going to the church. So we are now in the church building. And again, as I said, it's like the 1930s. Well, end of 1920s when the church was about rebuilt as a memorial to these Scottish soldiers that fell in the First War. And the land in the Greek community from the Greek church, the Greeks actually used to own quite a, let's say, a big plot of land from the both sides of the Hinnom Valley. And well, if you remember the German colony in Jerusalem, I did a tour. I actually did several tours there. Well, there is even still a place, well, the neighborhood still called the Greek colony, even then just basically when the German colony kind of merges into the Greek one, and the edges of them is now really difficult to find. Just next to one of the aisles, you see this memorial plaque, right? So this memorial stone. And later on, so this church became the memorial to basically the British soldiers, everyone who perished in the First World War. Well, the interior, one may think, is like very simple. Well, it's the Presbyterian church. It is looking very simple. It has so much light. And again, it was designed just to completely blend in with this concept of just using the Jerusalem stone. And it really blends with a lot of churches in Jerusalem. Obviously not the Catholic. The stained glass was designed by one of the local artists, and well, we have some photographs also to see that basically nothing really has changed. Nothing. It's still the same. still the same. The church is active. There are still services held, and still memorials held to soldiers. Even like almost 100 years later, well, yeah, 100 years later, the memorial services are still held on a regular basis. And also so there was also there's also when the church was constructed, there was well a legend that was brought up by the Scottish Presbyterian Church, that there was the Bruce, the King of Scots. Yes, so as you see, the church was inaugurated with the presence of a lot of politicians and spiritual leaders. So there was this legend that in the 13th century, the King of Scots wanted to be buried in the Holy Land. So the Robert the Bruce, early 14th century, he wanted to be buried in the Holy Land, and his warriors, after he passed away, had his heart, and they were on their way to the Holy Land to bury it in the Holy Land, but it didn't work out. So Scottish Presbyterian Church, that the Scottish patriots felt that they were with building the St. Andrew's Church, they were kind of fulfilling this last will of a very important king, but just 5 centuries later. Well, they made it work. What can I say? And yes, this is the original ironwork. Again, the idea was not to make it look old. The idea was that this building had to blend in with let's say, the entire looks of Jerusalem, also the way Clifford Holiday saw it, but it was also aimed at giving just comfort, convenience, light, enough light and space for the pilgrims and for the visitors. So that was the idea. So the building was constructed with the use of let's say, all the technical advancements and also architectural techniques that were available at that time. So the idea was not to make it look old. The idea was make it to be comfortable, convenient, and fulfill the function. Just another section of the Armenian tiles. And you leave the church now, we can see the beautiful Dormition Abbey, just exactly standing on the Mount Zion. So this is it. This is how close we are to the old city, to the edges of the old city, because Mount Zion is just basically 5 minutes away from the entrance to the old city through the Zion Gate. But the thing is, you don't see it from here, but there is a valley right below us, the Hinnom Valley. So the Dormition Abbey, we have visited it together somewhat maybe a year ago. That's the German Catholic Church, and it was built to commemorate the Mission of Mary, Mother of Jesus. So this church is believed to be standing on the spot of a Byzantine time church commemorating the same the same event. So as you know, it's all about the tradition. It's all about the tradition. It's all about beliefs, and there may be in Church Jerusalem, and they just belong to different denominations and different traditions. So this is okay. However, well, we know this is the memorial to the soldiers that fell in the First World War. However, obviously, this building was affected by the later battles, and this just really couldn't be helped. And we're going to be also talking about it on the following tours, because we just cannot completely skip the 20th century and geopolitics. So, they have done a really good restoration job on the facade. However, if you just take a closer look on this wall, that's exactly in front of us now, you will see some white spots here and there. They're like white or like very, very bright. So actually, these are the filled in holes that were left by the bullets that were shot during the 1948 war, which is the war that started immediately after well, almost immediately after the mandate was over and the state of Israel was declared. So this the well, in Israel you would call it an independence war. If you have a different stance, you will give another name to it. It's geopolitics. Okay, let's say 1948 war, and yeah, so, the Mount Zion was an important stronghold of the army of the IDF, Israel Defense Force, and the area around it endured a lot of attacks. What can I say? So yes, no matter how old or well it building can be, it will always be able to tell you so many more stories. Well, from here you can see the terrain, right? We are definitely on a hill overlooking another hill, and below us is the valley. So this famous Hinnom Valley. Well, we are eventually, in August, by the 9th of August, we should be reaching the Mount Zion, but so far we're not even going to the valley. We're going to explore something that you can find right under this church, right under St. Andrew's Church. Really like under our own nose, but if you don't know it, well, there is, you may just completely pass by the place called Ketef Hinnom. Well, Hinnom is the name of the valley, and Ketef means the like a shoulder, basically. So we are literally going to be walking on the shoulder or the edge of the Hinnom Valley. And well, that's a very important place. It's called Archaeological Garden because it's not really a garden, but it's full of archaeology. It's mainly about the stones and what was hewn in the stones, over the course of many thousands of years. And so what you're looking at, it looks like a lawn, but actually it's not a lawn. This is, well, let's say I don't really have the aerial view, but if you just take a closer look, you will actually see that there is some sort of an outline. And this lawn is basically laid on the outline of a Byzantine period church. We're talking 5th century Common Era, so the Byzantine period. And we believe that here used to be standing a church. Well, there were found some remains, well, some mosaic with the classical, designs used in the Byzantine period. And well, I've just been talking about the tradition in the Holy Land, let's say, to build a church. Well, say in the 19th century, to build a church on the spot where, the ruins of a Byzantine, of a Crusader period church were discovered. Well, or at least there was a tradition that just kind of claimed that there had been, some construction, similar use. Well, I love the views from here. And also, I just really like the what they found here. So it says burials in the early and late Roman periods. So next to the 5th century church, if you go a little lower, and we're going just I'm going to get back to this in a minute. So, but if you go a little lower, if you just look a little bit below, you will actually see graves. A lot of graves. Well, this is looking more like a garden. Yes, the Hinnom Valley. Well, we're going to be visiting next time. We're going to be visiting the park, and yes, well, the Hinnom Valley has quite, I would say, lush greenery, but basically it's about the stones. And you already know that the Hinnom Valley for many, many years, for thousands of years, was used as a burial because, well, nobody, including the Jews and also Romans, would not be doing burials within the city. They would be always then outside of the city where people do not live, just for, I would say, just no, just out of sanitary norms even. So that's uh, that's the place where for 4,000 years different burial practices used to be held. And there are gazillions of burial caves found in the entire Hinnom Valley. And here, just next to the 5th century church, the Byzantine church, oh, you can find the caves, the burial caves. So well, there were burials of the Roman period, early and late Roman period. So the Roman period in the Holy Land, in the chronology of the Holy Land, basically encompasses the period of the, let's say, 2nd century BCE, and well, up until the Byzantine period of the 4th century, right? So with Constantine, 4th century Common Era. And they were discovered, let me just go back a little bit to the a little bit of the explication there, just over here. So they did not discover the bodies, well, simply because they had been looted. There was so much looting carried out over the course of hundreds and hundreds of years, and also, yeah, including the 19th century, with a great wave of pilgrimage that started under the Ottomans. But they were found, well, they were found different pottery that just corresponds to the, well, to a certain period in time. Pottery is one of the best ways to do very accurate dating, because pottery was always so changeable and flexible, and it would just be reflecting, the trend really accurately, your trends at a certain period of time. So these vessels were found in those burials. But don't worry, we're going to go down, so we're getting closer to hell now. But before that, so the valley is just over there. We are just on the shoulders and on the edges of the Hinnom Valley. From here, you see everything. And well, if you come closer, you will see the entire valley. You will see Mount Zion, and you will see everyone approaching the valley, approaching the old city from all sides, from east and west. So this is really the perfect lookout. And plus that road, well, the Hinnom Valley was the from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, which is one of the ancient roads. And the Bethlehem road is really around the corner from here as well, very close. So this is just how important this location is. And over here, we are now looking at the Menachem Begin Heritage Center. We're going to be visiting it today, just in the very end, a very short visit. And this is the photographs, just for you to understand. So this photograph was taken from the opposite side of the road, let's put it this way. So you see the Menachem Begin Center in front, and right behind it, you see the Scottish Church. By the way, from here, Andrew, you can see that there is this tower. Well, from here, actually, you see what it means, like the Middle Eastern Art Deco. Middle East, well, like the international style of the Middle East edition. So you get to see the domes, and also the arches and the pointed arches. They're so typical for the Middle East Ottoman period. Definitely borrowed from the Crusader architecture. But also you see the tower that looks like that looks like the watchtowers, let's say in some Scottish fortress, like just keeps, like Scottish keeps. Yeah. So, but just for you to understand how close, the Scottish Church is next to well, how close it is to the Menachem Begin Center. Just in case, Menachem Begin was the Prime Minister of Israel. Well, 1980s. Just in case. But we're going there for a very short visit, not to talk about Israeli politics. We're going to talk about some archaeology. So once again, Ketef Hinnom, you can see where it is, how close it is to the Hinnom Valley, and here you can see how many caves there are. So many caves, gazillions of them. So a lot. There's a reason to it. You see Mount Zion, and then you see the old city. So very close, but It's going to take us several Sundays to reach the old city. And now we are actually heading to the area that we saw from the lookout, well, from the top. And now we're just going there. There's always this fence, and a lot of people think that it's closed, but no, it's actually open. And it works the same hours as the Menachem Begin Center. It kind of, well, it's the part of the Menachem Begin Heritage Center, but it has nothing to do with Menachem Begin. But anyway, so we're going to see actually 20, well, altogether they were discovered in that particular section, like 25 burial caves. But obviously there are a lot more. They are all numbered, they have their numbers, they are numbered the same way in the order they were discovered. Let's put it this way. So, and we're going to see an array of caves, and the one we need to see is number 24. That's what we need to see. So we need to go all the way to the end. There's no way you can get close. You can get lost, and we are going to see the caves, really different periods. The Roman caves were would be a little bit to the side, but well, even like here, so it's a bedrock. Yes, it's a bedrock, but in the bedrock there were found even older graves. So in this very short plot of land, there were the Roman period burial caves discovered, discovered the Second Temple period caves. And let's just talk a little bit about the chronology. So the first temple, that's basically, let's say from the year, let's say the Solomon Temple was built. We're talking here 900 something BCE till 500 till 586 This is when the first temple was destroyed by the Romans. And well, just several days ago, there was a night of Av, which was the day in the Jewish calendar. The day was, well, it's the most tragic date in the Jewish history. On one and the same day, the two temples were destroyed, first in 586 BCE, and then on 70 AD, when the second temple was destroyed by the Romans. So, and I'm just giving you the chronology. So let's say the Second Temple period kind of starts in 550 BCE and up until 70 AD. It's just a reminder, because I don't expect everyone to keep in mind the Israel timeline. Of course, it's not really that relevant for European timeline, because we have different, I would say, time frames. Yeah, so a little bit to the side, there would be those, Roman graves, but here in this particular section, we found a lot of graves coming from the first temple period. It's also changed greatly. They significantly changed over years. And the first temple period graves were quite different from the ones in the second temple period. This is what was discovered. This is the cave 24. And what you see, there's an explication just on the wall next to it. I just took a picture for you. So basically what you see is the outline and the base of a burial cave. There it was a cave. Now what you see is only the floor of it. So it collapsed over time, and it had to be cleaned and everything. So what you see is just the base of it, just the floor of it, and the burial niches. So they were used usually these caves were used by one family. And we're going to talk a little bit about the specificity of the burial caves of that period. And also they were discovered jars, some glass jars, some pottery that's after the carbon-14 dating test. So they just found out the timing. So what you see here, well, you can clearly see there's something really cut in the rock, of course. But if you step if you just come closer on the to the edge, you will see this kind of a round shaped niches. Actually, these are a little elevation, a little support for the heads. So the bodies in the first temple period were laid just on the flat floor. Again, there was a cave above it, but it was destroyed. It collapsed. They well, just imagine this is the first temple period. That's like almost 3,000 years ago. Now, like with all this pottery that we have, and also the way the glass jars looked, they were able to date it to somewhat between 2,700 and 2,500 BCE. Well, no, sorry. What I'm saying is that's it, from so they dated it to, let's say, to 2,800 or 2,500 years ago. So that's what we're talking. And so there, the bodies were just laid on the stone beds, and the heads would be placed exactly in those niches, and they have a little support. They're slightly elevated, maybe just for the comfort. I'm not sure of the dead. And then the bodies were left to decay, so that the flesh had to completely disintegrate, and then the families would be coming, taking the bones and placing them in burial niches. Let's say in the second temple period, it would be, well, Gabi Barkai can wait a little bit. During the second temple period, the body also just left to for the flesh to rot, and then they would be placed in the special bone boxes like ossuaries. This is common for the second temple period, and also we know that, let's say, in the Roman period, there were a lot of sarcophagi used, and a lot of Jews at that time were influenced by Roman culture, so Hellenistic culture is the best way to say it, and there will be also using sarcophagi. But so I'm just giving you a little, trends in the burial practices over the years, and so there was something really interesting that happened in the 70s. So Gabriel Barkai, may he rest in peace, he passed away in January just this year. Gabi Barkai is one of the really celebrity archaeologists that, well, the number of the amazing archaeological finds that he had over the course of his career is just completely over the top. It's not just one groundbreaking discovery, but it's gazillions of them. And by the way, he was the one in charge of the Stifton project, which we spoke about, well, on multiple tours, but especially on tours of the Temple Mount. So that's a big project. Anyone can participate, by the way. So yeah, it's just going through the rubbles and the soil and the sand that was excavated from the Temple Mount in the course of the illegal construction of the underground mosque in the Temple Mount. So the famous project. So Gabi Barkai in the 70s was in charge of the excavations in the Ketef Hinnom, and there was some sort of a volunteer and a tour for volunteers of schoolboys. And there was a 13-year-old boy who was just completely getting on Gabby's nerves. And he would just say, please be quiet. And he just wanted to keep him away from the crowd because he would always, he would just always like talk over Gabi Barkai and just misbehave. So Gabi just said, look, go into this cave and just try to find something. And don't come back until you find something. And so Gabi Barkai shared it in multiple interviews. And then this boy comes back with something. This is, by the way, Gabi Barkai sitting exactly by that particular, on top of that particular cage. This is exactly where we are standing. So I've taken you exactly to that particular burial cave. And over there, Maria, you're misbehaving again. I don't know how it's only you who could do this. So over there, so exactly at this cave, that 13-year-old boy that later became a tour guide, just discovered some some things in his. And he just came with his hand with something, kind of rolled up, like something round, very dirty, but clearly something. It was something very different from all the other rubble that were there. And later on, they were able to understand what it actually was. Actually, this yellow thing is getting on my nerves. So I'm going to just show the video again. Sorry for that, but I just also keeping the suspense. But I'm sure you know what they discovered. I have shared it already before. So later on, the archaeologists were able to understand what it was. It was the rolled scrolls that turned out to have been made from silver. There were two scrolls that were rolled up, and later on they were able to understand that they were used as amulets. On these silver scrolls, I think here you can see that it used to be rolled up. So they saw inscriptions in the Old Hebrew. You can see that it's different from the modern day Hebrew. And it's a brachot. Well, the blessing, the priestly blessings. So the priestly blessings would be used as amulets that people could wear. And they were etched on silver. So this priestly blessing, you can just have a quick look on some description that you could also find on the explications just next to the grave. So basically, they were made of pure silver, 27 to 97 millimeters, and 11 to 39 millimeters. So very small, very tightly rolled up. So they had the just a little quotations from the priestly blessing from the book of Numbers. So here we're talking about First Temple period around the 7th century BCE. This makes it is still the oldest how shall I put it? It's the oldest biblical text from the late First Temple period that has been discovered to date. And it's in Hebrew. Well, it's like the old Hebrew, but it's in Hebrew. And it wasn't really difficult to decipher it. It's not really a code. And it's in the burial cave. It's only a miracle that this silver scrolls, as they are called now, were discovered, because all the excavations were carried out. And you see, that's the St. Andrew's Church. This is how close we are to everything. And, this is just incredible that we have it. So when the excavations were carried out, and that's me sitting on the bedrock trying to take everything in back in 2022. So everything had been looted. So no really bodies were discovered. Nothing, no. There must have been tons of those silver scrolls. There must have been. Well, they were only discovered just in this particular grave because it must have collapsed at some point, and only because it was collapsed, the diggers were not able to clean it and loot that particular cave, because all the other caves were empty when the excavations started. And there must have been so many more of those, silver scrolls. There must have been so many more of those, this pottery or the glass vessels, but there's no way of saying it now. I also filmed a little bit back then, so I think this is somewhat December 2022, maybe it's January 2023, I'm not sure now, but I just also did a little filming with my just my phone, and so now we can just have a better look at those burial caves. So usually let's say on the flat place, the bodies would be held, laid, and then in the special niches, like over there, for example, the bones would be placed. But obviously, um, that's important to remember that there is always the secondary use, and the burial caves could have and were used in the subsequent periods too. So it's not really that easy to date it because of the secondary use. It's just one of the issues that archaeologists always are faced with. And as a little bonus, I'm actually taking you to Menachem Begin Heritage Center. But again, we're not going to be talking about Menachem Begin. We're going to be talking about some of the findings that were made. And so in Menachem Begin Heritage Center, there's just very little exhibition of the findings that were made. So look at all these pottery, look at all these jars. This is what was discovered, and also the glass vessels that were discovered in Ketef Hinnom. So this encompasses First Temple, Second Temple period, and the early and late Roman period. So you can just find them here. They also you will see that they also have a little exhibit showing the original size of the silver scrolls, but the original silver scrolls are obviously in the Israel Museum. So here we only have photographs, but we have this put together pieces of pottery and the glass jars basically that we have, and also So this is just a photograph of it. It's not the original. I'm not even sure. It must be the imitation, right? It's not a photo. It's an imitation. Yeah, I think it's kind of 3D. You maybe can even touch it, but obviously it wasn't there. It's behind the glass, so there's no way of saying. And from Menachem Begin, there when we were there, it was closed, but there's a cafe, and actually anyone can visit the cafe. So from there is really, really nice view, again, overlooking the Hinnom Valley. And from here, you can actually see the different heights, right? So there is the road, but there is also a road that goes lower. And so that's pretty impressive. And so you see the Mount Zion, the old city right behind it. You see a little bit of the walls of the old city from there. So these are the walls taking you to the Jaffa Gate. And over there, you see a building, just like a little bonus. So that building is overlooking Mount Zion. And that building is actually a very interesting, well, not an exhibit, but an important landmark. It's relevant for the times of the Independence War or the Arab-Israeli War. Actually, remember I told you about the ophthalmic hospital, the eye hospital that was built by the British, St. John Hospital, built in 1883. So this is the old building. This is the old building just by the Bethlehem Road. So the Bethlehem Road is just over there. So just right by the Bethlehem Road, there was opened the first clinic. And then later on, Clifford Holiday built the second building right on the other side, other side of the valley. So that first ophthalmic hospital on the Bethlehem Road during the times of 1948 war was used it was a warehouse that supplied the army and the inhabitants of Mount Zion. The Hinnom Valley, was occupied and heavily bombarded, and it was basically the Mount Zion was encircled. It was besieged, and that siege lasted for several months. So eventually, they figured out the best ways to just procure the supplies, the water, the ammunition, and everything. So there was built the cable car, and during the night, everything would be supplied to this cable car. And during the day, people weren't really noticing anything. It was not discovered, and now it's this building the ophthalmic hospital is not using this building anymore, but there is now built the Mount Zion Hotel. And the hotel just incorporated the building of the ophthalmic hospital, and it's now a museum actually of this cable car. So I haven't been there in person, unfortunately, but I'm planning to get it covered like soon. I really want to see how it worked. And you can and this mechanism of this cable car is actually preserved, and you can see in their photographs and how it was operated. So that was an important period in the history of the state of Israel. And that building played an important role, and you see how everything is connected. So basically, today we have put together the history that encompasses almost 3,000 years. That's impressive. So the earliest is, let's say, 8th century BCE, and we're talking like 1948, 1949. So this is it. Let me open the chat for questions. There you go. The chat is open. Let me know if you have them, and let me just, hi everyone who joined us a little late, a little after we started. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you so much for your interest in the tour, and I appreciate your time. I know it's a weekend. So let me. I'm not sure if you're seeing the previous messages on the chat, so I'm going to be sharing with you some links. So first of all, the tours that I have done over this weekend, the recordings will be available shortly, including also the live stream that I did this week. And speaking of next week, and speaking of another tour of actually, hell, walking in hell, which is not really looking like hell. Trust me, it's so great. It's a beautiful park. It's very interesting. So, but we're going to be walking in the so we're going to be doing it on at the same time next Sunday, the 2nd of August. And on the 9th of August is going to be another episode because, Hinnom Valley has so much to offer, so many sites that definitely one tour is absolutely impossible to have it all covered. And I think I've even overrun a little bit today. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And if you enjoyed this tour and if you feel like supporting me and thanking me for everything, well, you can do it by sending a PayPal donation or buying me a coffee. Maria, it's okay. I haven't figured out how you're doing this and how I can stop you from doing this. But it's just only a matter of me closing the video, launching it again. Well, it's in the book of Jeremiah. It was one of the pagans people that lived in the valley. Well, that lived not in the well, that lived around the valley. So there was just a settlement, a pagan settlement that burned the children. We're not really given a lot of information about it, and we don't even know who that Hinnom was. We still have no idea. But this is the name that was used in the book of Jeremiah. That's just it. But I'm gonna be giving some more details next time when we actually walk in the Hinnom Valley. So don't worry, we're gonna talk about it again. So it's not so bad if you're told to go to hell. Well, next weekend we're going to hell, and I'm hoping to meet you in hell next weekend. But the other hell, I mean, just the hell, the valley. Thank you so much, Mark, for the coffee. Thank you, everyone who have sent in donations. I haven't gone through them yet, but I will. Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting me, for interest in my tours. Just listening afterwards, you can ask questions. That's okay. That's okay, Maria. Again, it's on me. I really need to figure out how you're doing this first thing, and then why it's only you who's doing it. That's a mystery for me, So I just never really got around to it. And then if I identify how you're doing this, I will be able to do something about it. Thank you, Cindy. I'm glad that you these tours and all the wealth of knowledge of the Holy Land. Oh yes, there's always so much to learn about the Holy Land. I have no idea, honestly, no idea what it is. Thank you everyone for joining. Much appreciated. So I'm catching up with you next time. Well, same time next week, and we're going to be exploring the hell. But trust me, it looks so surprisingly not like hell at all. Not like what, not like what we think of it. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you next weekend for a lot of you know very different experiences by the Black Sea. And the tours of the Sheremetyevo Music Instrument Museum and Jerusalem. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for everything. Bye bye, everyone.